Hey, what's up, everybody? So, I want to just do a quick breakdown of what's going on with this Minnesota fraud with the childcare. So, over the last few days, this story exploded again after YouTuber Nick Shirley published a breakdown of what investigators allege happened inside Minnesota's childcare assistance programs. That coverage sparked backlash, accusations of bias, and a lot of confusion. So, let's slow this down and walk through what is actually known, what's alleged, and why this story exists in the first place. So let's go by what the facts actually show. According to state and federal investigations, Minnesota expanded childcare assistance funding rapidly over several years to meet rising demand. Payments were issued based largely on provider-submitted documentation, enrollment records, attendance logs, and eligibility paperwork. Investigators allege that some providers exploited this structure by submitting claims for children who were not enrolled, inflating attendance numbers, or billing for services that were never provided. In several cases cited in court filings, investigators say that the paperwork appeared legitimate on its face, but follow-up inspections and audits raised serious discrepancies. Now, these are allegations outlined in indictments and official filings, not internet rumors. Now, let's break down why Nick Shirley's coverage matters. The reason Nick Shirley's coverage struck a nerve isn't because it introduced new accusations. It's because it forced attention back onto something that had already been documented, but largely ignored outside legal circles. The core point he raised wasn't about identity or politics. It was about oversight, accountability, and how taxpayer-funded systems can be abused when verification doesn't scale with spending. That distinction matters, because criticism of government systems is not the same thing as attacking communities. All right, so let's address the backlash without amplifying it. A lot of the backlash we're seeing right now is focused on tone rather than substance. But tone doesn't change court filings. Tone doesn't change audit reports. And tone doesn't explain how millions of dollars were paid out before red flags were acted on. If the facts are uncomfortable, the answer isn't to silence discussion. It's to fix the systems that allow the problem to exist. Now, the issue isn't who exposed the problem either. The issue is why the problem existed at all. Now, here's where the system failed. The real takeaway here is structural. When programs prioritize speed, volume, and expansion, but don't invest equally in audits, inspections, and verification, fraud becomes inevitable. That doesn't mean most providers did anything wrong. It means weak systems punish everyone when abuse isn't caught early. Legitimate providers face more scrutiny, families face disruptions, and taxpayers lose trust. Now, why this story goes beyond one state? This isn't just a Minnesota issue. Similar childcare and aid programs exist across the country, operating under comparable reimbursement models. The broader question raised by this case is simple. How many systems rely on trust without verification? And what happens when the trust is exploited? That's why this story keeps resurfacing, not because of outrage, but because the stakes are real. So whether you agree with how this story was covered or not, the underlying facts remain. Investigations are ongoing, oversight failed, and millions in public funds are at the center of serious allegations. And until accountability catches up with spending, stories like this won't stop happening. Now, before we wrap this up, it's important to acknowledge the role independent journalists and commentators play in stories like this. People like Nick Shirley, who continue to document, research, and bring attention to allegations that might otherwise remain buried in court filings and audit reports. Accountability doesn't happen automatically. It happens because people are willing to stay persistent, even when the coverage brings criticism or backlash. Disagreement is normal, debate is healthy, but transparency matters, and asking hard questions about public money should never be controversial. That being said, let's take a look at this video from HHS.
I'm HHS Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill. I'm here with Assistant Secretary Alex Adams. Alex oversees the Administration for Children and Families. Intrepid journalists have made shocking and credible allegations of extensive fraud in Minnesota's child care programs. We believe the state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars over the past decade.
My office, ACF, provides Minnesota $185 million in child care funds each year. That money should be helping 19,000 American children, including toddlers and infants. Any dollar stolen by fraudsters is stolen from those children. Yesterday, I spoke directly with the director of the Minnesota Child Care Services Office. She could not tell me with confidence whether those allegations of fraud are isolated or whether there's fraud stretching statewide.
Today, we have taken 3 direct actions against the blatant fraud that seems to be rampant in Minnesota. First, I have activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF childcare payments across America. Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment. Second, I have just signed and sent a demand letter to Governor Walz. I required a full 360 review of these centers. This includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections.
And third, we've launched a dedicated fraud reporting hotline and email address at childcare.gov. Whether you're a parent, a provider, a member of the public, we want to hear from you. Let me be crystal clear. ACF expects every state to uphold the highest standards of oversight, monitoring, and accountability for federal dollars. Minnesota is no exception.
We're committed to holding bad actors accountable. Regardless of rank or office, anyone who's involved in perpetrating this fraud against the American people should expect to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
We'll continue following up this story as developments unfold, and we'll keep breaking it down clearly, factually, and without the noise. If you want straightforward explanations of what's happening, not just here, but across current events, power, money, and consequences, you're in the right place. More breakdowns are coming. And I'm going to end this breakdown with a confrontation Nick Shirley had with his state rep. The point is that fraud is fraud.
And do you think this fraud
Sir, I don't know who
crosses?
you are.
My name is Nick Shirley. Do you think this fraud is Republican or Democrat, or just facts that fraud is happening?
I think the fact that
Because
you're talking about it as a partisan issue.
Well, because that's what I heard you
shows
talking
me-
about. That
I know what I said is that
because
what we're talking
we want
about
to build,
is
we want to build trust, but fraud is fraud. So why should we be enabling fraud to happen here?
no. I don't think anybody is enabling fraud to happen.
The facts are the facts that fraud is happening here, and it's not a nonpartisan issue.